that more people can log in. It's just about 6 now, and I think we have a good sort of 45 minutes to an hour to converse and get in depth about a lot of different situations that are coming up in India, no doubt, obviously the world too. And let's take it from there and see what solutions we can find today, especially for our young viewers today. I think a lot of viewers are today coming in from the Northeast, and I think they have a lot of them have also written to me asking various different questions. So we've sort of summarized a few questions, and I think we will try to answer some of them to the best of our ability. Right. So I think 30 seconds is up. Let me just formally do an introduction very quickly. So good evening, everyone. Once again, good evening, Arjya. At the very onset, thank you, Professor Arjya Majumdar, who is the Dean of Admissions of OP Jindal Global University, for joining us today. I am Abhinav Gogoi. I'm the Vice President of Inspirus Education. And both of us are here today to basically discuss the idea of how COVID-19 is affecting the university applications in India, and what should students do to apply this year for whatever little time.
All right, it looks like Abhinav, it might be facing internet connectivity issues, but just so that our attendees know that this webinar is only for students who are looking to get into a university, perhaps this year, perhaps next year. What we will be talking about in the next 45 minutes to an hour, and we'll be answering your questions, is what do universities look for in an application, and what changes could universities be making to their application process in the middle of this COVID-19 scenario. Having said that, I hope that all of you are at home, that you're healthy and that you're safe. We know we are on the brink of yet another extended lockdown. For some of us who are in red zones, such as myself, sitting in Sonipat, we are in an extended lockdown for now, but we're trying to make the most of it, and thank you very much for attending this. I believe Abhinav Gogoi has just got offline, but let me just tell you about why we are here in terms of OP Jindal Global University. Now, we're right in the middle of our admissions process, in the middle of our admission season, and Abhinav from Inspirus and I, we thought it would be a good opportunity to sort of work towards telling students or making students aware of what are we looking for and what do other universities look for in a university application. Now, while we are waiting for Abhinav to come in, I should let you know that we will be doing these kind of webinars on a regular basis, not just on an overall career development or university application or higher education, but we'll also be doing topical current affairs webinars. For more information on the webinars that we're doing at OP Jindal Global University, I would encourage you to take a look at our Instagram page. It's Jindal Global Uni, that's the name of the handle. And every day we have 1 or 2 webinars that might interest you. While we're waiting for Abhinav to come online, let me just quickly answer one question asked by Muskan Agarwal. Where will we get the recording? This webinar is automatically being recorded, and when the webinar ends, you will be able to get a copy of the recording along with a survey. Now, the survey will be at the end of this seminar, and we hope that many of you will be participating. Without further ado, and while we're still waiting for Abhinav to come back online, let me just tell you what we are looking for in terms of OP Jindal Global University's application process. Right now, there are 7 core aspects of a student's application that we are looking for. Let me start with the first. We're looking for a positive attitude towards studying. Now, at the core of it all, university education is, well, inherently academic, and students must demonstrate that they're able to work hard, that they're ready to work hard, and they're not just applying to the university for the social life. So one might think of life at a university, particularly a fully residential university like OP Jindal, would be a lot of fun and games, a lot of cultural activities, a lot of making friends, engaging with roommates, so on and so forth. But it's not just that. It's, as far as a university or a higher education is concerned, at the very core of it is that academic rigor that a university offers. So we need to understand whether or not our applicants will be able to cope with the workloads of their chosen course and thrive at a higher level of education. But so now, how do you demonstrate? How do you demonstrate a positive attitude towards studies? Obviously, a strong performance in academics helps. Good grades in school, whether in class 10, 11, or 12, all of that matters, unfortunately. We've seen a dip in grades between going from class 10 and class 11. Many of you who are watching this, who might be in class 12 already, or perhaps in class 11, we do notice that there is a dip in grades, particularly for CBSE schools or even in ICSE schools. And we are expecting that. The question that we have as admissions counselors or as admissions officers is how much of a dip is acceptable. Another way to demonstrate a positive attitude to study is standardized tests. Now, along with good grades, students can demonstrate this in their personal statements by mentioning their extended essay or personal projects that they've taken on to expand their knowledge or study skills. And linking this to the intended sort of area of university study, the intended course that you want to take up, is very, very helpful. Showing the ability to manage your time and workload is important too. So what we're looking for is not just good grades, but also how you would be able to manage sort of extracurricular activities, perhaps community service, along with your academics. So the first thing that we're looking for is academic grades. Now, this might come as a shock to you for some, but beyond academic grades, we look at a number of other things. One of them is passion. Students must demonstrate a passion for their chosen subject. I don't believe that there is any point in teaching a student, particularly at the university level or at the higher education level. I don't see any point in teaching a student something which they're not passionate about. For example, so I am the Dean of Admissions and Outreach at the OP Jindal Global University, but I also teach law at the Jindal Global Law School. I have seen countless students who have been forced into getting into the law school without a passion to study law, right? I believe Abhinav is back, and I will invite Abhinav to continue this conversation. Abhinav, where we are while you were unfortunately away was that we've been talking about what is the first thing that we look at in terms of university education, in terms of university applications. And what I've told our attendees, our audience so far, is that we look for good grades, we look for a positive attitude towards studies. And we've said that we look at their class 10, class 11, class 12 grades, as well as standardized tests that they take up. Of course, the standardized tests that we have in terms of the OP Jindal Global University is the JSAT, and we do expect our students to excel in that. Abhinav, back to you. All right, I don't think Abhinav is able to connect in any real sense. So what we're going to do is we'll just continue with the second idea that we had in terms of a passion for the course subject. Now, as I was mentioning, there are a number of students that have come across whose passion wasn't law, and they've gone on to do other things. One of them went on to become a painter, and now she's a really, really good painter, having been my student in law. Abhinav, are you able to hear us?
I think I finally did. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about that. There were some technical glitches while the internet went off, and there's a storm brewing outside where I live right now.
I hope you are in the storm though.
No, I think the technical storm has passed, so I should be online for the next 40 minutes or so. Please continue. I'll catch on with the.
Right. So I was mentioning to our audience that we're really looking for students that can demonstrate a passion for their chosen subject. Independent, extended interest in a subject that goes above and beyond that is required in the classroom, or personal achievement and extracurricular activities can all help to illustrate this. And it's beneficial for students to show how learning within and outside the classroom links to whatever they're choosing in terms of their higher education. Now the question is, how do students demonstrate this? And this is where the personal statement or the statement of purpose, the SOP, comes in. Within that, we expect that students should be able to describe why they are passionate about the subject that they seek to study, and what they've done so far. Now this is really critical. To demonstrate a passion for the subject, you must talk about what have you done so far to pursue that passion. And more and more colleges, including ours, we're moving away from students, accepting students who've done just general stuff, and we're moving towards more students who are focusing their energy and their time in specific areas that they're passionate about. And we want to see what makes our applicants special and how hard they're willing to work at the things that they care about. So in terms of demonstrating that passion, the personal statement or the personal essay is a very good tool. Abhinav?
Right. Yes, Ajay, I just want to sort of discuss this a little bit more in depth for the sake of our listeners and viewers also. So let me give you two case study, and maybe you can give a judgment on each of these cases. So typically, when somebody comes down to counsel with me or with my team at Inspirus or in the schools that I've worked with, usually we always get the question, sir, I have my grades fine, I have, I'm planning to do my testing also, whether JSAT, SATs, etc., because we all know all universities require entrance tests nowadays. I'm okay with sports, but my social service is really low. So whether or not they have a good social service or not, but they think that they should put their hands in social service also. Later on, they'll come 3 months later and they said, okay, now since social service is taken care of, my academics are taken care of, sports are taken care of, let me do a little bit of debating, so it's another 3 months of debating done, come summers, and then they would be, so what about, internships? So like, okay, let's look at internships, so an internship done. So then comes online courses in the winter, so you do one or two of online courses, skill development, personality development, whatever. So then you become a jack of all trades, like a whole holistic CV. Now we have another student, who's very passionate, let's say, about physics, and he wants to get into physics. He's not very interested in sports, neither he's very interested in community service or social service. He's sort of a introvert kind of person. His academics are obviously quite up to the mark. His testing is up to the mark, but everything that he does in his spare time is all physics related. He's into robotics. Maybe he's done a few online courses in robotics, let's say. He's trying to do well in the physics Olympiads, and whatever activities he wants to participate in, whether it's sort of academic oriented activities such as quizzing and so on. So it's all sort of physics science oriented. Given these two sort of students, what kind of student would you be looking for? I mean, first you can talk about OP, but I'm also interested in your sort of universities, where the modern age universities who are doing exceptionally well, not just OP, but there are multiple others now across India. So what kind of students are you looking at? How would you judge these students?
So Abhinav, thank you very much. And this, I think, is a very, very important and pertinent question. And I think at the core of this question lies, an underlying philosophy, which is, should a student pursue things like debate and social service just to get it on their CV, right? And that's really the question that we're asking. The first kind of student that you told me about has a well-rounded, holistic CV. But here's my question. Why did the student do the things that they did, right? Is it born out of passion? Did that person actually want to do social service to actually help out their community or humanity at large? Is that what they're passionate about? And to me, if it is just about getting a line on a CV, then I don't think it should have much value. yes, it has some value that you have engaged in community service or you have engaged in social service, and you do have, let's say, debate skills, right? And that points towards a well-grounded individual, which we also look for. But then when you do too many things, it's very difficult for an admissions officer or an admissions counselor to identify passion, right? I'll give you an example. So back in school, I would do quiz competitions, I would do debate competitions, I was in the school rock band, and my interests were varied. I could not actually demonstrate a passion, right? And I think schools, progressive universities like ourselves, along with others like Ashoka, Shivnadar, Priya, Flame, Christ, you name it, what they're actually looking for is, why does this student want to study this particular course? And the simple answer is, are they passionate about it? Will they be a good fit for this course? Because if somebody who's doing physics and robotics and going to Olympiads constantly, then moving from a school to a higher education level will be that much easier, right? So in terms of CV building, and I agree, it's very difficult to identify someone's passion. I mean, passions can change from year to year, perhaps even month to month. But if you feel strongly about a particular course of study, that I want to do engineering, right? So somebody who's listening in and you're in class 10, 11 or whatever, maybe class 12 might be too late. But if you have the time, think about things that you can do to showcase that I actually want to do engineering and to prove it, right?
Right.
To say,
I think I would like you to stop here right then, because I think
sure,
this is a very pertinent question for you to continue the discussion. Because
sure,
let's say as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, firstly as a counselor also, and I tell them to all my students that I counsel, that we don't expect you to be perfect,
yeah,
right? So neither
that's
should
true.
the universities expect them to be perfect. That means at age of 16, 17, 18, they're trying various things to actually understand the passion.
Sure,
And therefore, like, abroad universities has this concept of applying without a major.
yeah,
You don't choose a major, yet you can apply to that university, because there you want to go and explore that particular major and so on. So how do you draw that line then? How do you go about sort of nitpicking these kind of students? Because uh, maybe so, and they might put that in their personal essays or SOPs also, that they're trying it out because they have interest in so many different things. Yet,
right,
even at the end of a university course, whether it's a liberal arts or any sort of even a very targeted scientific course, bachelor's, you still might not find your passion. So
sure.
how do you what would you advise these sort of students, and can you delve a little deeper into the sort of process of choosing students? I think we are more interested in that
Yeah.
rather than, because I think we all
So,
understand CV building as well. Yeah.
so Abhinav, this is unfortunately a function of the way Indian higher education works. Now, until
Mm-hmm.
very recently, we did not have a liberal arts degree in India, and even now, as in terms of ICSE or CBSE boards, you're expected to choose either commerce or humanities or science right
Mm-hmm.
from class 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that specialization is further sort of enhanced when you're told now you have to choose a BA or a BCom or a B or a BTech or a BSc in a particular field. To my mind, how do you expect a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old to make up their minds as to what career you want to go to? Right now, that is a glaring problem that we have in the Indian higher education system, and I agree. However, if a student thinks that they're passionate or they're interested in something, and that can change, right? That can change at any point of time, right? And if, as long as they're doing something to further that passion, that's what we look for, right? So, for example, let's say somebody is applying to our BA in political science, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the questions, one of the things that we'll be looking for is, has this person been involved in debating? Has this person been involved in, let's say, mock youth parliaments, right? When, let's say, if we're doing a faculty interaction, the faculty will ask that, okay, what are the most current political problems that we have in the country? Because if you're going to study political science, you ought to be interested in what's happening in the world of politics around you, right? So these are the cues that we look for in terms of interest areas and all that.
Right. I think that's a very valid point. I have a few more questions, especially in terms of your testing and generally talking about SATs and JSATs and entrance tests, etc. But we'll come to that slightly later. But before we go on, just to quickly sort of bring in not just the modern age Indian universities into context, let me also bring in the typical government universities into context also right now, especially. I mean, I think yesterday itself, I think our education department has given out some ideas as to how they want to see universities open up, especially in this pandemic. From what we understand is that a lot of the board exams that will happen, that are supposed to happen, that was cancelled in the month of March, will now happen after the lockdown opens, most likely in June. Right? They will probably CBSE inclusive of ICSE and other state boards who have not completed have said that they would give about 7 to 8 days to a maximum 10 days notice to students and schools, and then the exams will happen over a period of 6 to 8 days, at the max 10 days, without any gaps, and then the exams will finish very quickly. They will probably take 2 weeks, 3 weeks of time to probably correct all the papers, maybe another 2 weeks to declare the results, and then we will go into a huge admission process in the month of July, and then of decision making taking place in the month of August for students to start the new batches for class of 2021 now. Sorry, class of 2020, entry into class of 2020 will most likely start their college in September, 1st of September. That is the target that they have sort of listed. How are your type of universities placed in that? Because you've been recruiting students since November now, and I think a lot of your seats are already sort of filled up. You're still extending the deadline as per the guidelines, obviously. So how are you placed, and what are you looking at? So the students who are admitted to OP Jindal, let's say, and I can speak for Asoka or Sivnadar and Priya and all of these, Flame, etc. Are you looking to start in August itself, or are you also looking to start college in September?
So, Abhinav, we at OP Jindal Global University, we are preparing to start our classes on the 3rd of August, right, which is the first Monday. Now, as per government regulations, as per the government directive, we are required to start our first batch on 1st of September, right, as per the government directive. And we will follow the government directive as it stands. And while we are prepared to start our classes on the, on the 3rd of August, as of now, all classes apart from the first batch, the incoming batch of 2020. Of course, if there is any further government, requirement or government intervention, we will obviously have to follow that. But as of now, we are making preparations to start classes on the 3rd of August for all batches except for the incoming batch. Right? Okay. That's your in terms of preparation. Now, the second question, the second part that you asked was, what are we doing in terms of our admissions process? Is that right?
Yeah.
So in terms of, let's say, our admissions process, the admissions process has four steps in it. Right? First is the application form, which includes a statement of purpose, right, or a personal essay. And this is for most courses apart from law and architecture, which have a separate set of regulations, right? Second is a qualifying exam or the entrance exam, which is the JSAT. Third is a faculty interaction, which in certain cases we are waiving and we're doing an interaction with the admissions office itself, with the admissions counselor. And the fourth component is the class 12 board results, right? Now, obviously, the class 12 board results are going to be delayed. We know that, right? So if let's say the board results conclude in hopefully July, and we're hoping and praying that it is going to be in July, we're happy to wait for those board results to come in later on. So what we're doing now is we're rolling out what we call conditional offers, which I think many other universities are doing, on the basis of class 10 marks, class 11 marks, a faculty interaction, class 12 pre-board results, right? Now that's really important because we've seen there's a strong correlation between class 12 pre-board and the class 12 results. Right? There's always a positive correlation, right? So we're trying to use predictive analysis to figure out whether a student will be able to excel in our university based on whatever they've done so far in the last couple of years. Plus, of course, with the faculty interaction, I myself talk to, 10, 15, 20 students a day to figure out if they would be a good fit. And so what we're doing is we're rolling out conditional offers right now, even as we speak, with the condition that they must achieve a certain degree or a certain percentage in their class 12s, and that they must clear the JSAT exam at a later stage.
Yeah, can you sort of discuss a little bit more about the conditional offer? What kind of conditions do you put in those?
Okay, sure. So primarily there are two conditions that we put in, right? So one is that you must clear your board exams. Now that's obvious, right? I mean, you can't go to college without clearing your board exam, right? That's one.
Of course.
That you must clear the JSAT exam. Now, for those of you who don't know, the JSAT exam is required for all Jindal undergrad programs, apart from law and architecture, right? For law, it's the LSAT. Now, the LSAT has also been delayed. It's now in June. But in terms of the JSAT, we are working with a company, with a service provider called Pearson VUE. Now, Pearson VUE, as you know, does many other tests, including the GMAT, right? Now, the JSAT is administered through Pearson VUE's test centers, which are all over the world, including Guwahati, right? We're trying to convince them to set up one test center right at AVS, at Assam Valley School, but it's going to take a while. But what we're also doing right now, and we're very mindful of the fact that even after the lockdown opens up, people may not want to step outside. People may consider a public health crisis as an actual public health crisis, and may feel that in certain containment zones or designated red zones, it might be still very dangerous to step outside. So what we're doing right now is we're working with Pearson VUE so that instead of going to a test center, having to go to a test center, students can sit at home using their laptops and appear for the JSAT at home. So we are working with JSAT on this, and we expect that we could have this take home or home examination of the JSAT within the next couple of weeks.
Right. I have just to, again, I will hold on to the JSAT and the SATs and entrance tests a little later, because I think that's a major chunk of our discussion.
Sure.
But before I go on, there's a very interesting issue that is developing in our country now. And because I counsel students to go abroad also, and I was in conversation with multiple colleagues from across different countries, especially in the US, UK, and so on, the major destinations of Indian students. Because of the pandemic situation, many cannot or planning to stay in India, cannot go abroad or planning to stay in India. Now, of course, their profiles are quite good because they've done multiple different things. They've done well in SATs and so on. So now, so when these students want to apply to India now, I feel that they might be taking place of the students who are actually India is the main destination. Right, because these students could afford to go outside, but they cannot anymore, and therefore they're applying to Indian universities and colleges. Normally it's a whole chain reaction, and some stay here, some go out, and it's all based on financial constraints. So are you getting these kind of students also applying to your universities, and from your colleagues from other places that you know of? Is this situation happening, and how are you dealing with it?
So it is actually happening. So we're getting a number of students. So let's just first examine the sort of incentives or disincentives, or the reasons why students are doing this. Right now, there are two. Right now, the United States is a true leader of the world, in the sense that they are leading the world in number of COVID-19 cases and unfortunately deaths. Right.
Yeah.
I checked a few weeks back. Perhaps it's changed. A few weeks back, I checked. To get to the US, you need a US visa, obviously, and that is done through an interview. The earliest interview date is in October, right? So what we're seeing is a lot of universities abroad. They have resigned or consigned themselves to the fact that their fall 2020 semester will be online. right? In fact, many of our partner universities, including the University of Arizona, they have reached out to us saying that we have students who are coming into Arizona. Can you please keep them on your campus and we will teach them remotely from Arizona to JGU, right? And then when things get better in terms of the public health scenario, they can shift to Arizona. So that's one set of students. But what we're also getting is similar students who have applied to universities abroad. Either they don't want to go out because of government restrictions or because of public health issues. Now, mind you, Western Europe as well as North America have been severely affected. And in your experience, Abhinav, you will also agree that most of our students want to go to either the UK, US, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, right? The English-speaking country. And here you have the Australian Prime Minister saying that it was all well and good when we had international students, but now that we have a public health crisis, please leave, right? And mind you, education is Australia's second biggest export after oil, right? After minerals, right? So now we see a lot of students saying that no, I may not want to go abroad because of the public health issue, or what's more critical is that because of this pandemic, we are looking at a possible, I wouldn't say possible, I'd say most probable recession, right? And what happens in a recession? There are hardly any jobs, right? I've seen it myself. I was a lawyer in London in 2008, 2009, right? During the last great recession. And, when unemployment becomes high, then, getting a job after your higher education, that also becomes a problem. So these are some of the issues that these students are facing. And that's why they're beginning to apply to universities like Ashoka. Again, are, this group of, I would call them progressive universities, like Ashoka, SNU, etc. Of course, they're also applying to the regular government colleges as well. But as we know, regular, an application to a regular government college, unless it is very reputed, that college may not be, in the best interests of the student. Right?
I agree. Yeah. Right. So that's so I think the best way to look at it is obviously directly connect with the universities to see what their admission policies are. I think that's the most advisable thing that we can give you right now, dear students. So let's go back to the topic of JSATs and SATs and entrance tests. In India especially, while a lot of colleges outside in the US are becoming test optional this year and the next, but while they in a very nice understatement, they say it's recommended. We are test optional, but it's recommended. So, which basically, in a way, saying that you might as well do it because everyone who's
you cannot, but if you do, the likelihood of getting accepted is more. That's what they're saying. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's in a very nice way. That's what it means. And of course, for students going abroad, SATs play a very huge role, especially in acquiring those scholarships. And naturally, considering it's so expensive outside. Scholarships are the way to go through testing. Now, in case of India, it's slightly different because we have such a huge diaspora of students. We are nearly about 200 million odd students, going into university now as we speak, and to cater to all of these students, obviously, it's not enough that we have only the modern age universities. But also the government universities. So entrance tests plays a huge role in segregating the type of and the quality of students. Now, what is happening is that, if you look at it, a lot of exams such as final exams of board exams, ISC, CBSE, has become redundant in nature because all entrances are sort of based on the entrance, admits are based on the entrance exams, right? Obviously, in cases such as yours, you look at other aspects also of the essay and the interview and so on. But majority of is all based on entrances, right? And I think that is the norm that we tend to see. So why? I mean, I understand JSAT, but so now SATs have also come up with this alliance of universities, which OP Jindal is also part of, where you accept SATs as a test score as a replacement for JSAT. Do you also accept SATs for in replacement of LSAT?
Unfortunately, no. So the bar. So again, for the law programs, it's governed not just by the UGC but also the Bar Council of India. And the Bar Council of India requires a Indian national level examination. So, for example, any law aspirant should be applying for the CLAT, obviously, for the national law schools. But for us and for a few other private law universities, a few private law colleges, we accept, right?
LSAT.
So,
is it online? Is LSAT online? Has it gone online this year, or will it go online? Do you know?
Again, LSAT is also offered by Pearson VUE. We are working with Pearson VUE to ensure that LSAT does go online. Again, it's in terms of moving everything online, I can tell you how difficult it's been for the last few months, and hoping that we are closer to that goal than ever.
Right. So coming back to my question, actually, the reason why I wanted to ask you and brought about the concept of SATs and entrance tests is that now SATs, firstly, we'll talk about entrance tests also, but SATs as a whole has become one test fits all, especially in the case of India, because we have, I think, nearly 29, 30 odd universities who are accepting SATs as part and parcel of their admission process, and normally you would end up doing SATs way before your pre-board exam. So does that make sense? Would you like students to do SATs rather than JSAT, because which basically means that at the end of their pre-boards or at the end of their application round, they don't need to sit for, let's say, Asoka entrance test also, JSAT also, Narsi Monji test also, or Shiv Nadar's SNU SATs also, or Symbiosis, or so many different tests. So do you like this concept? Are you? I mean, are these universities happy? Are you all happy with this?
Well, I think we are, but I will tell you this: that while you're mentioning that the SAT is a one-size-fits-all sort of thing, and I agree that the SAT as a standardized testing unit or a standardized test has been very successful. But I can speak for JGU. I think most of us are fairly happy. Most of these progressive universities are fairly happy accepting the SAT score in lieu of, in lieu of their own entrance exam. But what I can tell you is that for the JSAT, while it is also a combination of qualitative and quantitative questions, the weightage to qualitative and quantitative questions varies. So right now we are offering a wide variety of undergraduate programs, right? And for most of them, we require the JSAT if you haven't applied for the SAT or the ACT, right? Now, for our BA Economics program, we require a bit of quantitative aptitude. So we will increase the weightage over there, right? So the number of questions being asked and the weightage being given to quantitative aptitude questions will be slightly higher for a BA Economics graduate rather than let's say a BA Liberal Arts applicant. And that sort of fine tuning we can do for our own entrance exams, including Shiv Nadar, Ashoka, etc. Right? That kind of fine tuning we would unfortunately not be able to do on SATs.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So that's one advantage that we have in terms of our own homegrown sort of entrance exams. But again, if a student has appeared for the SAT, perfectly acceptable, and there's no need to sit for the JSAT.
Okay. I mean, generally, just generally speaking, it probably saves some time and a lot of mental effort sitting for one exam compared to so many others.
Absolutely.
Right. And how? So when we talk about JSAT or when we talk about individual entrance exams of these various universities, how are these all standard across universities? Especially in government universities and so on, because how must a student prepare for these exams?
Well, of course, most entrance exams for private universities, they are all fairly standardized in the sense that there'll be a combination of quantitative, qualitative, comprehension, these kind of questions.
General awareness,
General awareness, etc. Right? But when we come to the government universities, especially let's say the engineering colleges, those are vastly different. Right? I mean, if you look at any engineering college exam, it's mostly going to be quant. It's mostly going to be PCM. right? And while the government of India is trying to figure out ways and means to create a national level entrance exam,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a far way away, and we're happy to wait for the government to come up with a national level entrance exam, a sort of one size fits all for India, as you might call it. But
Yeah.
I think it's important for students to figure out where they want to go by, let's say, by the time they get into class 12, right? So, in terms of a roadmap, right? In terms of a student's roadmap, if a student has some inclination towards, let's say, you know, the area of study that they're in, right, and they want to continue with it, right? Then start looking at career options and figure out which tests do I need to give, and then give yourself at least a year, if not at least 9 months, to start preparing for those exams.
Yeah.
Right.
So you heard it, kids.
Take it very quickly.
Yeah. So as I said, you heard it, kids, from Arjya himself. Where, I mean, the ones who are in class 12 right now, who just got into class 12, your preparation starts now. In terms of choosing colleges, preparing for the entrance exam, whether it's SATs or LSAT or whatever you want to get into, and also start not building your CV but jotting down your CV, because your CV is obviously for the last 3.5, 4 years since probably class 9. And then when you have all of that comprehensive data with you, you must obviously look for a counselor or a teacher. All companies, organizations such as ours, where we provide professional help for you to attain maximum success in achieving in college admissions. And then figure out your pathway, figure out your roadmap, figure out the type of universities you want to go to. Obviously, extensive research is required. You might want to choose OP because of this particular course, but you might want to choose Asoka for another particular course. So, and based on also the type of campus, the type of students there are, the type of faculty there are in these various universities, as well as the facilities that are available. And even simple things matter, whether that university is a vegetarian university or a non-vegetarian university.
And these matter. I agree. These things matter.
Yeah. So I think so. As I said, preparation starts immediately now. But let's delve a little bit more into sort of CV building now, and let's sort of segregate different types of courses and different types of preparation that is required. And let's start with law, because obviously you've been a lawyer. You're teaching law right now at Jindal Global Law University, I believe. And so what type of students are you looking for in law? What type of students should go into law, and how do you sort of figure out, or what should a student do to figure out whether he or she is keen towards law as a career?
Right. To begin with, a lawyer's job is to represent somebody else, whether it's in court representing a client, or in a boardroom representing a corporation, or perhaps in terms of lobbying and social service, in terms of representing somebody who a class of people who've been downtrodden, who faced injustice, right, before the government. Now, so what we're looking for in terms of what makes a good lawyer is that the ability to stand up not just for themselves, but also for those who cannot stand up for themselves. So what does this mean in terms of preparation? What we're looking for is law students who are critically thinking. They're constantly asking questions about what they know about the world around them. They're asking questions about, is this based on an assumption or is there a fact to it? Trying to break down complex facts into simpler ones, getting to the core of the problem. So in a nutshell, what we're looking for in terms of lawyers or law students is that a combination of people who are able to think critically, as well as people who will be able to think analytically, right? And again, this is all coming out of the LSAT examination as a combination of, again, the questions and the general awareness of students that there are, and based on the LSAT exam, based on the cutoff, we offer them, we make them offers, right? But again, being a good law student doesn't necessarily mean you'll become a good lawyer. I know many good law students who've gone on to move on from law, right? Many of my batchmates were with me, by the way, I went to NUJS Calcutta, one of the national law schools. And many of my batchmates don't practice law anymore, and they were very good lawyers. They're very good law students, right? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Very couple of quick technical questions since we are talking about law. What if can an LSAT student do it from? So if it goes online, so it will be available to students across the world, right?
Yes.
Because there was a question that had come up where it says if an NI student isn't able to come to India, how will he or she be able to sit for the LSAT? You know.
Well, they should be able to sit for the LSAT anywhere in the world, right? They can appear for the LSAT, from anywhere in the world. What they should do is contact the law school admissions officer, right? The details are there on the law school website. That's jgls.edu.in. And if you speak to a law school admissions officer, you should be able to figure out where exactly the center is. Now, of course, again, like I mentioned, we're working with Pearson VUE to take LSAT completely online. And if that is the case, then you can sit at home and appear for your LSAT.
Wonderful. Another quick technical question also. If a student has cleared CBSE or ISC already, and you've given them a provisional offer, what is the minimum requirement of JSAT percentage in order to be getting a confirmation letter?
Right. So this will depend upon the program that they're appearing for. So it ranges anywhere between 60% to 50%, and most of the programs that we have fall within this category. Now, what I would recommend the student to do is again figure out which program they're in, call up the admissions officer, and ask, okay, what is the JSAT cutoff for this particular program?
Right. So let's switch to business very quickly. And I know OP Jindal also has a very good business management program. So what about business? What kind of testing should a student prepare for, and how should their CV look like?
Well, again, for business,
please understand, sorry, Arjya, please understand we are talking not just about OP, but we are talking of generally universities like OP Jindal here. Okay, so please don't think that we are only talking about OP and OP and OP. But it is across. This is all across the board. This is all across all the modern age universities that exist in India, and a lot of the government ones now also. And this is coming directly from the horse's mouth because I've been in touch with a lot of government universities also personally. They are also looking at changing the admission process to what these modern age universities already have. So that means, and therefore the question about JSATs, therefore the question about SATs, therefore the question about entrance tests, and they're also looking to sort of holistically sort of get students into their universities, especially if you look at Christ or if you look at Symbiosis, they all have personal interviews or group discussions nowadays. A lot of technical universities such as Azim Premji or Mahindra Equal or any of these universities also have sort of interviews basically or group discussions. So as and when we see, we are basically changing the landscape of sort of how a student should study and how a student should learn and what a learner should be like. And universities are all looking at learners nowadays, or people wanting to learn rather than already having learned everything that the books can provide. So coming back to that, Arjya, let's talk about business. And what kind of a student are you looking for in business? What kind of student is universities look for from business management students? Yeah.
Right. So we have a couple of business management and sort of commerce related courses. There are three of them. We have the BBA, the Bachelor of Business Administration, which in recent years has become very, very popular with a number of students. The other is the IBM, or the Integrated Business Management, which is a BBA, MBA combined. That's 5 years. We also have a BCom program. So what we're looking for in terms of these courses is, again, some kind of aptitude, because maths will be there, even though it's a little bit. But more than that, what we're looking for is, again, a well-rounded personality. We're looking for somebody who can speak well, who can articulate their thoughts, who can communicate well, right? Because that really is the hallmark of a good business administrator, right? Somebody who can grasp onto new ideas quickly and be open really to accept new ideas and new opinions. Apart from that, of course, some aptitude towards business studies, maybe business studies in 11 and 12. If you've taken that up, that would definitely help. But again, the reason why we do these group discussions and these faculty interviews is to ensure that the student is well read, is articulate, is up to date about information about the world around. One more thing I should mention, with, let's say, with the businesses and the technologies that they use changing rapidly, some of our programs also have this element of fintech and cryptocurrency and blockchain, right? So again, even if you're doing a business administration course, we look for whether you're okay using new technology or understanding how technology works. You might not end up, not at the level of a B.Tech. Nobody's asking you to code or anything, but just the idea of using blockchain technology to drive fintech, right? These are the questions that we, or these are the ideas that we throw at students just to see what the reaction is.
Right. So to sort of summarize, I think what universities such as yours are looking for in students is the potential to learn, if I may say that correctly. And I think the potential is probably more important than the knowledge itself, and all these processes of testing and all these processes of faculty interviews, or all these processes of personal interviews and so on, a full-fledged comprehensive application form itself where you write your SOPs and essays, bring out that potential, and I think universities are looking more at that. Let's talk about the social sciences, and before we end with the sciences altogether. In terms of social sciences, the students generally in India, and I will be very blunt here, please do not mind me saying this, attendees here, that normally it's a sort of thing in India where people who are not good at numbers end up doing social sciences, which is a very wrong way to look at it. And usually people sometimes look down upon students, which I really feel bad, that if you do social sciences, you're looked down upon. But as we see now, the trend more and more across the world is that people are hiring social scientists to be the leaders of companies and CEOs and so on. So what are you looking for in a social scientist or a social science student, humanities student?
Well, again, for most of our courses, we're looking for an openness to learn. I'll give you an example. A few days ago, I was contacted by one of our faculty members, saying that she had to interview this student who, in his application form, had written some very right-wing extremist views, right? To the extent of referring to or idolizing Nazi philosophy, which is as extremist right-wing as it gets, right? And this faculty member said that, I'm not so sure I want to interview this boy. And I was like, why? Because I think he's too extremist and he's too right-wing. So this is what I asked her to do. That why don't you talk to him and see if he's open to accepting different opinions? Is he open to accepting new ideas? Is he open to acknowledging that different people have different points of view and that they can all coexist in harmony? And that's exactly what she did. And that fellow now has been made an offer. So the point is that in terms of the social sciences, whether it's political science, whether it's policy, whether it's global affairs, even with the liberal arts, what we're looking for is people who can, again, accept the fact that they have an opinion and they have a right to an opinion, but so does everybody else. And once you start exchanging opinions, you start exchanging ideas, that is where we find the growth in terms of knowledge in social sciences. That's one. Again, we're looking for people who who cherish the idea that somebody can have an opinion, right?
Right. I think what I want to bring in now is actually, for the sciences we already know, because they're all very technical. Most technical universities accept science students, and you're really looking at the technical qualities of a student who's applying for sciences, whether it's engineering or medical, or whether just honors programs in various sciences, or transdisciplinary sciences, interdisciplinary sciences. So that is pretty straightforward in terms of admissions and so on. If you're good at it, then you must go ahead with it, and university will definitely select you. But let's come to the finances bit a little bit, because these modern age universities are expensive. I mean, you are expensive, UP is expensive, Ashoka is expensive, Sivnadar not so much, Flame is expensive also, Preya is also equally expensive. So a lot of these universities are expensive. Of course, all of you have also scholarships, because a lot of students do get a lot of scholarships to go into these kind of universities. So how do you balance that out? So somebody, not so meritorious, or maybe, in your chart of entries, let's say among 100, he or she is ranked around 50, and he or she is not very well off, in order to be able to attend your university or at Ashoka or any of these universities. What would you suggest to them? How do you deal with this sort of a situation? How much do you want this student to be on your campus? You know,
Well, we have a fairly robust scholarship policy and a very robust scholarship program, which is based on merit and means, right? We don't believe that any student who cannot afford a Jindal education should be bereft of a Jindal education. So we take into account the students' past academic record, like we've mentioned, class 10, class 11, and the board results, along with the JSAT, the faculty interaction, as well as perhaps if they've appeared for the SAT. We also take into account the parents' earning capacity. So we will ask. So for example, if a student asks for a scholarship or applies for a scholarship, we will ask for the student's the parents' ITR, right? And as far as possible, we would like to award scholarships to meritorious students who would otherwise not be able to afford a Jindal education. And I think this is the case with most progressive universities across India, where we should not be looking at a scenario where just because a student can't afford it, they are not able to take up a quality higher education. So we have a mix of both merit as well as means to ensure that all students who wish to take up a Jindal education should be able to do so, but as long as they have some merit as well. Now, it would be very difficult for me to, or for any university, to sort of defend giving a scholarship to a not so meritorious student. And Abhinav, I hope we will all understand and appreciate that the measure of future success can only be dependent upon past performance, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
And I wish I could look at every student that I meet and gaze into their future to see which one of them are going to become CEOs of multinational corporations, but or world leaders for that matter. But I really can't.
Yeah.
So it has to be based on past.
Right. So I think we have only about 3 minutes. So I think it's almost time to say goodbye. But let me just quickly summarize for everyone what we just spoke about today. Unfortunately, I missed the very beginning because of technical issues. Sorry about that. We'll try to not to make that happen again. But very quickly, what we are looking at with universities such as OP Jindal University, inclusive of all the modern age universities, we keep mentioning about Ashoka, Zakriyas, Flames, Sivnadar, and so many others, Mahindra, Ikola, Jim Premji, and so on, so on. And we are lucky that we have so many of these in India now. So all of these universities are basically looking at the learning potential rather than the learner itself, and that potential is not overnight. It's not sought after overnight. It happens over the course of years. Usually it takes 3 to 4 years of showing that potential. In order to do that, you must start early. But nevertheless, it's never too late always for the ones who are applying for next year's fall 2021. Things that you must keep in mind is to start building a very good CV, start writing stuff down. You must start doing your research. You must start to plan to do the entrance test of various universities, whether it's SATs as a whole, one test fits all, or whether you do the JSAT or AET or any of these entrance tests that you apply for various universities. You must start preparing immediately. You must start getting checklists of various universities, the type of university that you want to apply to, and also start connecting with these universities. That is the most important thing. All universities have a very good website. All universities have contact people. They all have dean of admissions and director of admissions, etc. you must reach out to them. You must send them an email saying that, hey, good evening, sir, ma'am. I'm very interested about your university. Please, can you tell me more about it? And then start that conversation going. And as soon as you start conversing, then you'll get the feel of that university, and they will also get the feel of who you are. And if that sort of matches, and if it matches, fair enough, you must apply. If it does not match, then no worries. Also, there are other very good universities also for you. I think that is the best course of action. And also, just to sort of conclude everything here, we will be discussing more in depth in the next session that we have. I have with Arjya. We'll be delving more in depth about how to go about preparing for the SATs or JSATs, how to go about building your CV, what type of online courses we must do, what type of programs we must do, what type of internships should a student look at, and the nitty-gritties of drawing up a good application based on your CV. So I think that is what we are going to do the next time. And at this point, I would really like to thank Arjya for the time that he's given us today. I would also like to thank all the attendees today. I think we had quite a huge number of attendees, and I thank you for that. I hope we've been able to give you a little bit more in-depth knowledge about the type of universities OP Jindal is. And I hope also that you've taken a lot of learning from today, and will use that in your future course of action with regards to applying universities. COVID-19 or not, we all want good education for everybody. Last words from you, Arjya.
Well, thank you very much, Abhinav, for this wonderful conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I must say that many of the questions you asked were very probing, and I hope I was able to answer most of them with some degree of clarity. Having said that, of course, there are a number of questions that people have asked, and rest assured, we will be reaching out to you individually via email or through some other mechanism. For those of you who managed to attend us, thank you very much for coming. And of course, like I mentioned, OP Jindal Global University will be doing a number of webinars, almost 2 or 3 every day, not just based on higher education and careers, but also based on topics of interest, right? So thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed yourselves.
Yeah, and at very last, this is Abhinav Gogoi, Vice President of Inspirus Education, a company that excels in test prep and as well as counseling for abroad as well as Indian universities. So if you need any help sorting out any of your application issues, or just figuring out what kind of career, university, etc., you need to go to, please write to us. We will share all the information online directly written to your messages, to your emails. And please reach out. I think the more you talk about things, the better your learning will be. So signing off. Have a good evening. Bye-bye, Arjya.